This is the Health and Politics podcast. Prevention is the new cure.
And that's with former ministers James Bethell and myself, Steve Brine. Hello, James.
How are you, Steve?
Very well. Now, James, my sources tell me that you were at the top of a mountain. That's because you posted a very marvellous photo of yourself with, I presume, Lady Bethell, looking rather lovely with blue skies behind you.
It was an absolutely stunning walk up one of the biggest hills in Mallorca, where I'm on holiday with the family. I also have my 14-year-old daughter, who's totally kick-ass and has better navigation skills than me. It was thanks to her that we didn't get lost. She's a total mountain natural. And Steve, it was a poignant moment for me because I've been on my own health journey for the last 5 years. 5 years ago, I was in a mess. I couldn't even run 500 meters, and I turned it around a bit, and I got to running marathons, and got my basically sorted myself out. And then about a year ago, I hurt my foot running, and I've been pathetic. It has been a really bad setback, and I have struggled to mend my foot. I have done some stuff that I'm meant to do, but not really thoroughly. And in the last few weeks, I've knuckled down, and they give my foot electric shocks that hurt like stink, but it does make it better. And I've been electrocuting my foot a lot. And I'm pleased to say I did a 14K, 600-meter walk without any problems at all. So for me, that was a big moment.
So you electric shocks to your feet, which hurt like stink, but your feet don't stink. Unless you've been to the top of a mountain, which I suppose they might.
Yeah.
See what I did
Where
there?
have you been, Steve?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I was just going to say, before you say that, do you know what? I'm at that stage in life too where I'm 52 now. Every single person that I see in my peer group, the conversation seems to start with things that are falling off or things that are not quite what they were. And I've had a few at the start of this year, which has been quite boring. But yeah, everyone I speak to, we seem to start with that at the moment. And I'm guessing that is just what happens at this stage in life. But we're on I might be on the back nine, but I like to think that I'm still just on the ninth green. Basically.
Oh, Steve, you're in great shape.
There's a long way.
You've got a lot of chipping and putting ahead of you. But this question of rehabilitation,
thank you.
Brits are not good at rehabilitation on the whole, and it's absolute. At our age, you've got to really lean in when you get injured, and if you don't, it can knock you off course.
Yeah. Now, in answer to your question, I've been in Sweden, James. Which I just love Sweden. I went there. I went to Stockholm 2 years ago with the Health and Social Care Select Committee as part of our big prevention inquiry, and particularly as part of the sort of addiction string of it. And we were looking at their alcohol, tobacco, drugs policies, and it was just so beautiful. We were there for a week, and those who know Sweden, the sun doesn't always shine, let's put it that way. And for the whole week we were there, it was warm and blue skies. And I said, this is so beautiful. It's a bit like being in a kind of Scandinavian fairy tale, really, in Stockholm, certainly parts of it. And I said, I've got to come back with the family. So I took Susie and the kids over there last week. We were just there Monday to Friday. And it was a bit grey at times, but for the 2 full Tuesday and Wednesday we were there, it was blue skies and sunny. And we did the walking tour, we did the boat tour, we took out cycles, and I just loved it. But the thing that's sort of interesting from our point of view is that they have a state-owned retail monopoly of alcohol in Sweden, James, which basically after the Second World War, they were drinking themselves to death as a country. And so what they decided to do is have state-owned monopoly alcohol retail. It's 100% owned by the state. And it's called Systembolaget, and they have, instead of off licenses that we have here, so obviously, here in Winchester, you could go into 24/7 at 8 o'clock this morning, buy a bottle of whiskey. You could then go and buy another bottle at 11, another bottle at 2, and another couple at tea time. You can't do that there. There's only one retail offer, which is this state-owned Systembolaget, and it's very, very iconic, very clear identity to it. And the staff in there's no offers. There's no buy one, get one free. Advertising restriction on alcohol is tightly controlled. And so the off trade, if you like, is very, very tightly controlled. Yes, you can still buy alcohol in the on trade, so in bars and restaurants, but the culture of alcoholism is very, very different to it is here. And the thing that struck me, you walk around Victoria, Westminster, the heart of our capital city, the heart of our democracy, and you see people, don't you, literally falling about, laying on the floor, um, just completely blotto. I was there for a week, and I was there for a week 2 years ago, as I said. I just didn't see that once. Maybe I was just lucky. Maybe that was just coincidence, but I don't think it is. The culture of alcoholism is completely different. And I just wondered if you'd ever come across that approach in Sweden in your travels.
I have. They still struggle with, they have an alcoholism problem, but it is true that the North European countries, they consume alcohol in a way that they don't anywhere else in the world, really. You go to Asia, for instance, where I spend a lot of time, you just don't see people getting drunk and disorderly so often. But it is changing in Britain with the younger generation. I mean, it is just extraordinary when you go to bars and clubs these days. Hardly anyone's smashed. And, I look back sometimes at videos from the Ministry of Sound early days in the 90s. You can see them on TikTok now. And everyone's so sweaty and caned and drunk. Everyone's steaming. And you look at club photos nowadays, it just doesn't look like that. People are just better behaved and not so drunk. So I think maybe the North European drunkenness problem may be just lifting eventually, thankfully.
Yeah. I mean, I think the system exists primarily public health, not for commerce. And I think that's sort of the pillars that it's built around is, quite high pricing via taxation, quite limited availability, and then strict marketing controls. You'll love this. They've just recently slightly tweaked, maybe slightly relaxed the rules around breweries and distilleries where you can now buy the product that they make. But wait for it. If you go to one of these places and you want to buy alcohol, they then have to start with an education about the dangers of alcohol before they sell you any of their grog.
I know.
Can you imagine?
I know. I don't. I that makes me feel uncomfortable. I mean, I'm pro.
I hear you. I hear you.
But I mean, I am a red-blooded capitalist at heart. Mind you, in Britain, I still find it difficult to socialise without having had a couple of drinks first. I am an inhibited product of my generation. That's a crazy way to exist, though. You can't talk to people and put your guard down without some anaesthetic in advance. So, I mean, it took me. I had to give up drinking for 2 years to learn how to go into a social environment without having, being half cut, basically.
Yeah, I was asking a Swedish MP when we were there last time, if there's any moves in the parliament, they have elections later this year and they have a populist challenge there too, where there's any moves to move away from this system. And they said, you know what, maybe one, maybe two siren voices, but no, absolutely not. And I just thought, can you imagine if we tried to introduce something like this in our country?
Well,
there would be pitchfork riots.
I floated as an idea that we should have dry January in Parliament, and I went round for about a week.
I remember you saying, yeah.
Oh my God, I mean, it's like suicide. People took me to one side and said, James, with the greatest respect, if you want any future in this place, you really got to drop this one. I mean it as a friend.
How to win friends.
I thought it was like an edgy, interesting, career-building campaign.
So there you go. But thank you to Charlotte Refson for standing in for me last week.
Yes,
very interesting to hear you talking to Susan Jebb. And obviously the week before we were in the same place. We were not only in the same place, we were in the same country, which was extraordinary. But anyway, we're on our travels again this week. So you're listening to Prevention is the New Cure. It's just two ministers offering, hopefully, some insights into how policy is made and the trade-offs that have to happen. And you could contact us. WhatsApp, James, 0333 404 6507. And we have a new email address. It's hello@preventionisthenewcure.com. We'd love to hear from you. So this week on episode 92, we are starting, James, with a drug that could prevent 1 million heart attacks, but only if the system wraps its arms around it.
Nicely put. Then we ask what happens when the people who run the NHS data system all leave at once.
Yeah, that would never happen. And after that, the junk food ad ban that took 6 years to arrive, that I wrote in the original childhood obesity plan, it's arrived, but it's got a big loophole, big enough to drive a McDonald's truck through it. We will explain.
And then I'm pleased to say we've got an absolutely fantastic guest DJ Tina Woods, prevention advocate and techno queen, who's coming to tell us about her longevity rave with her partner in crime, DJ Yukari.
Okay, so we're merging your old world and your new world. And then we'll finish by celebrating a 50-year-old government report that reads like it was written yesterday.
Thanks for listening to our show. As you do, we'd be delighted if you could hit the subscribe button to get our brand new episodes.
Yeah, every week, every Thursday lunchtime they land. Now back to the top, James. So 1.2 million people with cardiovascular disease are now eligible for Wegovy on the NHS, not just for weight loss, but to prevent heart attacks and strokes. This story has been everywhere in the last week since we last chatted. And it sort of follows on. We were saying Charlotte Refson was filling in last week. The Tony Blair Institute, of course, very heavily for the 10-year plan to include a much wider rollout of GLP-1 weight management drugs within the NHS plan. And this is sort of moving towards that, isn't it? A good thing?
It's an amazingly good thing, Steve. It is a massive and emphatic step. There's no other country where the healthcare system has lent in on this scale yet. We should be really proud of the NHS, of our leaders, and of the whole system that it has been this bold. But, and this is an important but, it is tentative. And what they have done is to put forward a very, very stripped down, basically pills by post system that will be delivered largely by pharmacists. And that has almost no support services for those who are on the treatment. No, what they call wraparound service of either doctors or nurses or nutritionists, of digital platforms to nudge and monitor what you're doing. They're really leaving patients on their own. Now, there are some benefits to that. You can at least get some baseline data on what the drugs are doing to support people on their journey. Okay, so that's clean data. That there is a good epidemiological reason for doing it that way. But I fear that what's actually going to happen is that the adherence rates won't be that strong, that when people give up the drugs, they'll drop really hard. And it gives the impression that you're on these drugs for life, but that doesn't need to be the case. If you have the support that we've learned people need, you can manage your self to be able to learn how to live in a different way. And I could cite to you a number of the trials that have demonstrated that. So, Steve, there are concerns about the way this is being done.
Yeah, I think it's like, you were talking earlier, weren't you, about managing and learning to live with an injury, which, you don't then go and do all the things that cause the injury. You adapt the way that you exercise, you adapt the way that you live in order to make sure that you don't exacerbate that and then repeat it. And, I think the stats are quite clear, aren't they, that cardiovascular disease is prevented in around 7 out of 10 cases. So it is a prevention milestone. But as you say, I think it's the wraparound care that worries me with this, and also that who is going to help with that follow-up lifestyle changes to make sure that, as you say, statins, you're not on them for the rest of your life, because the cost of that, if you get used to it, and we are sort of seeing this at the moment, and huge numbers of people who are ordering these drugs through online private pharmacies, and then as the prices go up, they then can't afford that, so then go to their GP saying, okay, can I now switch this into receiving it through a public prescription? And the GP says, well, no, you don't meet the criteria, and GPs are then being put in a really, really awkward position, don't have the commissioning budgets to do it. We could be storing up problems, as you say, unless we have that wraparound care that allows people to change their behavior as well as their physique.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that it is slightly different to statins. Statins have almost no side effects for most people. There are a few people has a little bit of swollen ankles, but really, I take my statins. I don't even notice them at all. These are quite emphatic drugs, and people, when they express an opinion, mostly strongly don't want to be on them for the rest of their lives. They want to have agency. They want to take control of this important aspect of their lives. And here we are totally medicalizing the condition and giving people really a medicine-only treatment pathway and leaving them to sort themselves out in every other aspect without nutrition, without physical activity support, without psychological support, without a very easy means to answer questions or to seek other solutions to managing their weight. Now, if you've had a heart attack, this particular program is targeted at people who've had a heart attack, who have a very, very high chance of having a second heart attack. If that second heart attack will likely be very, very severe, and by the way, cost the NHS a ton of money. If you can avoid that, you're saving the taxpayer and the system and your family and your community and the economy a huge amount. So this is a really good intervention, but it's being done in a very slightly nihilistic way that is, making the drugs do all the work.
Yeah, the drugs do work.
Yeah, they should have a song about
that. Right, yes. Anyway, moving on. NHS prevention brain drain. I know we wanted to talk about, didn't we? Over to you.
We did. And now the NHS, as we know, is stripping back. It's shedding 1,300 staff that it's absorbed into the Department for Health, with some very, frankly, severe results. I have been supportive of this move in the round, but the actuality of it is tough, frankly, Steve. Women and ethnic minority workers have been hit hard. There's no beating around the bush on that. Also, ministers are looking at a break clause in Palantir's £330 million contract for the NHS Federated Data Platform. That's another big disruption that's on the horizon. People who are potentially leaving, we know, two senior tech leaders who helped build the system, Ming Tang, great hero, Sonia Patel, who was on this show 2 weeks ago, are already gone or are going. So in other words, a lot of the people who know how the data system works are actually leaving. And a lot of the key infrastructure build is got to be potentially at jeopardy. Now, to have a prevention first NHS, you've got to have great data. It's absolutely fundamental to figuring out how to direct population resources, how to catch disease early, how to risk score people. You've got to have complete records and you've got to have an oversight, and you've got to support your research plan. So data is the key component for prevention. So Steve, I don't know about you, but it worries me that there's this much disruption on the data side of things in NHS.
So there's two things here which we deliberately put together in this discussion because I think they are both process issues in a way that then impact on patient care at the other side. So on Palantir and the Federated Data Platform, and then we were chatting about this, weren't we, the other day? If not that, then what? Because you okay, the left in particular hate it, and you see some of the people posting about it. Jeremy Corbyn, John McDonnell, they hate it, but then they don't like any private sector involvement in, quote, our NHS. So if not that, what? And as you say, if you can't manage population health data, then you can't do proper upstream prevention. So, I just worry that maybe the hatred of FDP is coming from the wrong place, and therefore they might end up with the wrong answer. So worried about that. Chion Wara, who's the MP who chairs the Science, Innovation Tech Committee, has rejected Palantir's claim that opposition is ideologically motivated. Not so sure. And disappointed in Chi to hear her say that, because actually I think she's a very sensible person and a thinker. On the wider point about NHS Singler being abolished, 1,300 staff being absorbed into the department, but across the system, there are 18,000 people gone out of the door, many of them at the end of March, across the whole system. And the question for me is, are they really all, as ministers like to suggest, pesky pen pushers unrelated in their work to patient care? If so, if that's the case, then there'll be nothing to see here, will there? If not, as I suspect is the case, and that many of them actually do have quite patient care related roles, then we're going to see a problem in terms of the performance as the NHS goes forward. So what I mean by that is, a couple of months ago, we had Jim Mackey on the show, of course. Well, last week, Jim Mackey ended his first year as Chief Executive of the NHS, and he's made performance his number one thing. So recovering 18 weeks, 4-hour emergency department, Category 2 ambulance waits, getting that back to the 30-minute. And to be fair to Jim, he has made progress on all three of them. I mean, there's question marks as to how much of a sprint was needed to get even close to the trajectory on 18 weeks. But is there uniformity across the system for that? And I think there's a big question mark about that. And so is he going to be able to maintain that performance at the same time as, of course, introducing neighborhood health and the three shifts that are in the 10-year plan, given that he's now seen an awful lot of good people go out the door, not just at the top of the system, but further down in the systems, in the ICBs. I think there's a huge, huge risk there. If I was writing the risk register for this government's health reforms, I think this is a big risk for them, James.
I agree. I mean, both you and I have been on the front line of ministerial responsibility for data. I really wish the current team well in this. It's so fundamental to the success of the overall project. And I guess what we're trying to say is, with the BMA telling doctors not to engage with Palantir, with Foxglove, who I don't know if you know, sort of ambulance chasing litigant solicitors, really effective, tough sort of disruptors of public priorities. There's just suddenly feels like a whole ton of issues heading at the data project. And I'm not complaining about it. I'm really trying to emote positive vibes and good wishes. And also, I hope, grip and determination to the team to make sure that they don't lose sense of momentum and energy around this, because it is so fundamental to making the project work. I just really hope that they're going to keep leaning in and don't wobble on this area.
Yeah, just finally on this, I think my concern would be that we are repeating some of the mistakes of 2012 and the health reforms, where good people at the top have agency, and therefore can fly away. And Ming would be a good example of that. Sonia, who's obviously moved up to be the government's chief CIO, and then you've got people at the bottom who you refer to them, women, ethnic minority workers. They're hit hardest and they're just pushed out. And then you've got the middle. And there'll be good people there in the middle as well, but are they leaders? And what the systems need at the top and out there in the country is they need good leadership to take forward the three shifts and the prevention shift in particular. And I just worry that this sprint that they had to do towards the end of the financial year to make sure that they met or stayed on track with some of their targets, that has delayed implementation of some of the stuff in the 10-year plan. So now in the new financial year, and I saw Jim Mackey in the HSJ big 1 year on interview he did last week, he said that this coming year isn't going to be about scraping by. Really? Yeah. Less money, less people, and the goalposts have moved for ICBs on commissioning. So what they've now all got to do is they've got to walk and chew gum at the same time with 18,000 less people. And that's a challenge.
No, it's a comparison with 2012. That's a really thoughtful one. And if you speak to Team 2012, listen, they made some mistakes, but they really are not bitter, but they scratch their heads and say, a lot of these ideas were good ideas, but somehow when it came to implementing them, it was all so soggy and treacly that things that we thought were going to happen just didn't happen. And it's that all over again. Some good ideas may be let down by, as you put it, the soggy bit in the middle. And I just hope very much that we've got a team that understands the system extremely well, has reach into the middle, and can keep it all going.
Yeah. Well, very early on in this podcast, Helen and I had a guy called David Pendleton on from the Henley Business School, James, and we were talking about leadership in the NHS, and we should return to that subject actually, because good leadership, and I think many people would say that Jim is a good and strong leader.
Yeah, for sure.
But is there good and strong leadership right the way through the system? Discuss, and we will. We're going to just talk on before we introduce our guest about the junk food ad ban. So this has been a long time coming. The government's obesity strategy, it first proposed a 9 p.m. watershed for junk food ads in 2020. And then Henry Dimbleby, of course, on the podcast a few months ago, National Food Strategy endorsed it and pushed for it to go further. The Health and Care Act of 2022 in the last government legislated for it. Then there were delays, but finally it came in earlier this year. But there's a major loophole in it, isn't there, James? And we alluded to it earlier.
It's totally heartbreaking, Steve. I mean, we try so hard to work in partnership with industry on these kinds of measures, and hours are spent. I mean, hundreds of hours, and hundreds of thousands, tens of millions of pounds are spent on lobbying and consultants to try to figure out guidelines that everyone can sign up to and agree to. And the objective is theoretically shared by everyone, that we're going to try to reduce the amount of calories and sugar that children eat. And yet when they're actually implemented, there's such a pressure on everyone. I mean, I don't want to sort of single out groups, but on food companies, on grocers, on advertising companies, that they can't help themselves but find ways around the ban. You can always find ways around things unless they are written in very, very stark terms, and that's what's happened here. It is a same old story that you ban chocolate from the tills and you find it on the back wall, and yes, the ban on advertising, they are finding what exciting and interesting ways to get through to children. I came to the opinion that you had to have very clear, tough guardrails. You had to have incredibly simple laws that were unavoidable. Otherwise, they didn't work. And I worked on smartphones, and we brought in a ban on pornography for children, and it had the benefit of just being very easy to implement, relatively speaking. I've reached the stage now where I just think any advertising of any food to anyone under 16 should be just 100% banned with high consequences, because there's just no other way of doing it. I don't know, Steve, have I lost it?
No, not at all. I mean, Dimbleby resigned over this, of course, and I think this is a real moment for this government, actually. At what point does the sort of brand exemption become a test case for how seriously they are taking prevention? When we wrote this item for the show, I remembered seeing a McDonald's advert the other day, before the watershed. And I thought, this is a really odd advert. It's one I haven't seen before, but it didn't mention any of the products.
Yeah, that's right.
It was about how they do service with a smile, which if you go to the drive-through of many McDonald's, I think you might find that not something to smile about. But anyway, it was about how they do service with a smile and how they communicate in the kitchen and at the servery desks. That's what it was about. But it was definitely a McDonald's advert. I thought, that's an interesting take. Why are they doing that? And naive me. Now I realize why they were doing that, because it was a brand advert, not a product advert. And that's what they're doing. So you know what? It's not in the spirit, guys. Get with the plan, do the right thing. And if you don't, government should make you.
I agree. And listen, can I just say a shout out to a few of those who are trying to make a difference on this? Catherine Jenner, and Fred at the Obesity Health Alliance, Malcolm Clark at the Cancer Research UK, Colette Marshall at Diabetes UK, Sadiq Khan, my sparring partner from Tooting from 20 years ago. Hats off to him for the TfL ban. And you mentioned her earlier, Chia Noura, who pushed on digital advertising enforcement through the Science Committee. There are people out there trying to do the right thing, but this whole agenda is going backwards, I fear, at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Prevention is the New Cure, the health and politics podcast with myself, Steve Brine, and James Bethell. We'll be right back with our guests.
Welcome back to Prevention is the New Cure. And it's with great pleasure that I'm going to introduce my old friend Tina Woods, who has worked with me on Business for Health in the past, an amazing organisation to champion the role of employers in the health of the nation. And also, we authored together a Lancet Healthy Longevity paper in 2022, which made a lot of sense then and still makes a lot of sense now. So we are old buddies. But Tina has gone on to do some absolutely extraordinary stuff in the area of dance music, which is a area of huge love to me. She's much more up to date than I am. I date back from the 1990s. But Tina, you're now running the Longevity Rave, which literally brings together the two big loves of my life. And you've come on air with Yukari, who is your DJ partner. Very nice to see you both. Nice to see you, Tina. Nice to see you, Yukari. Tina, Yukari, tell me about Longevity Raves and what you're doing there.
I'll just set the context a little bit, just to explain that actually Longevity Rave was founded and co-founded by both myself and Yukari, and we both are DJs for Longevity Rave. But I'll just say a little bit about Longevity Rave, and then I'll hand over to Yukari. So essentially, we founded this as almost as uh, following a meeting on the dance floor that we had about a year before that. We share sort of an energy together. We became dancing partners, and we decided that we would learn how to DJ together. So we learned how to mix music. I did it during a time of recovery over foot surgery, and of course, Longevity Rave was born about 6 months after that. So it's been up and running for almost 2 years now. But Yukari, how would you describe Longevity Rave?
Longevity Rave is essentially a music and movement experience that is centered around dancing for wellness, health, and longevity. So our events are very intergenerational because it's led by me and Tina, who obviously come from very different generations. And it's centered around just experiencing the collective joy that you feel on the dance floor with different people of all generations and all different cultures and backgrounds. And my love for dance and music and my kind of love for the raving community always was rooted in just like the amazing community and the sense of belonging that I feel, because I experienced a period of loneliness in my life, and I had quite a lot of mental health struggles. And during that time, what really helped me was dancing and dancing with other people and feeling the energy on the floor. So that's something that I think is so core to raving culture, and that's what we wanted to deliver through our raves as well, and that's obviously connected to how to live a longer and better life. So that's what Longevity Rave is about. It's kind of combining.
James, is this taking you back, James? I should just add the track that you heard as James was introducing the guys here is called "The Choice" by Cats and Dogs, and that was your suggestion, Tina, for the show. It's the first time we've had some rave music on Prevention is the New Cure. I asked AI guys what is Longevity Rave, and it said that it's a hybrid of club culture, health science, and a social experiment.
There we go.
At its simplest, it's a rave that doubles as a live research lab. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say so. Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, it's all underpinned through the science. So we actually are running a scientific experiment at the moment called the Joy Score experiment.
Yeah, tell us about that. I love
this. Harnessing all the longevity science and technology. So the Joy Score is essentially, we want to become as mainstream as a sleep score step count. And how do you actually measure joy and human connection, which is obviously a very, very complex science. But we're harnessing the latest science and technology of longevity science and health to actually work this metric out. So we're working with the latest neurotech partners like Muse and Aware technology and all the longevity biomarkers to actually try and pin down a metric for this. So it's an ongoing open science study. We kicked it off in December. It's going to take probably 2 or 3 years to get to that point, but we have huge number of interest, partners from around the world in the tech sector, as well as various communities, including the Burning Man community. So it's actually really, really starting to hit a nerve, and we're running this and building up the London cohort right now. We had so we're building this as a worldwide global science project. So it's actually quite exciting. And this will show that longevity rave and group dancing and synchrony actually is good for your health, well-being, and longevity. So we're going to prove that.
And can I measure my personal joy score?
Not right now. I think we all know that feelings of feeling good and happy, I mean, there's all sorts of subjective measurements around that. But what we're trying to do is actually show how that affects your biology and your genetics. So empiric measurement to get the data and the science that you need to really convince the investors, the policymakers, to actually invest in actually making people feel good. The environments in which people thrive is the big next frontier in longevity, in my world of longevity. It's not just about pills and molecules and drugs. In fact, that's probably the smallest part, as we're finding with the evidence. So.
Fantastic. Well, listen,
fascinating, James. I feel a little out of my comfort zone here. I'm just trying to understand then beyond it feels good into sort of the science of it. we started the show talking about, as we get older, things hurt, things fall off, and things we don't recover as quickly as we wanted to. So, the sort of, can you explain the biological pathway, if you like, between dancing and improved health outcomes? Because yes, it feels good, but does it stack up?
So the biological, the intricacies, the mechanistic biological pathways are obviously very, very complex. And that's actually the world of longevity science at the moment, is to actually work out, actually the complex pathways involved, this genetic, cellular, physiological, organ level, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact is humans live as part of a system, and our behavior and our motivations, our need for hope, and, these are all fundamentally actually impact our biology. So we don't know the exact causal pathways yet, but this is obviously the domain of longevity science to work out with the power of AI and all the new frontier technologies, quantum, etc. But the point is, we already know that our feelings of elation, positive mood, etc., affect our hormones. Serotonin, cortisol, all those sorts of things can be measured now. But actually, what we're introducing is a much more, I guess, frontier end of it around the latest neuroscience, neurochemicals, brainwave activity, and actually using AI to actually look at the patterns across data sets. Coming from epigenetics, hormones, metabolites in the urine, all those sorts of things. And this is what we're collecting on our volunteers in the Joy Score experiment. For example, in Honduras, we ran a 4-week study where we were collecting a sort of brainwave activity, all the sort of classic longevity biomarkers, some new biomarkers that are coming through in Silicon Valley. So it's actually very, very frontier science that we're looking at, and very, very exciting. We've got the biotech world interested in, but actually, interestingly, we've got many, many other sort of sectors, consumer brands, sort of luxury goods, sort of, people who build places for health, experiences. They're all fascinated by this, because if they want to demonstrate that making people feel good in their environments is actually a key contributor to health and well-being, and especially around, increasing social connection, which is the biggest driver of poor health and is actually the biggest factor in driving up good health, that we need to concentrate much more on.
It really resonates with me, Steve. If I meet my buddies from Ministry of Sound when we have one of our social events, they are, generally speaking, very well networked. They have a lovely community. Dancing a lot in the 90s was not so bad for their health, and they look pretty good these days. If I meet my journalistic friends from the 1990s who are still drinking and who have had torrid careers for the last 30 years and are not always, in the best of mental health, they look terrible. I promise you, going to JD Wetherspoon's every day is not as good for you as listening to dance music. I think that's a scientific fact that we should all acknowledge.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So it was founded a couple of years ago, as you said, and it's just the 2026 version of Longevity Rave has literally just happened, right? Last month. How many people were involved?
The one in London, I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
Hackney Bridge, yes.
Hackney Bridge,
the Hackney Bridge, yeah.
Yeah, I think around 100 people signed up to come to the rave. And it was a really intergenerational crowd. I think it was
it?
really, yeah, there was a lot of older ravers who came, but with I think there was like someone who came with their aunt, which was really cute. There was her aunt wanted to come to Longevity Rave, and she just kind of came along, and she just loved how me and Tina were DJs, and the overall dance floor was just a really free space where you can just like dance and feel no judgment from anyone, which is really, really, really great.
Yukari, could I just ask you, when you say older dancers, could you be able to define that? I mean, would you describe me in my early 50s as an older dancer?
Oh dear, you had to ask that, didn't you, Steve? I mean,
I have to ask it. I
just wouldn't have asked
I'm so sensitive. I need to know.
Yeah, I mean older, because one, I would say yes. I would say yes.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Damn that. Damn that.
But older does not mean anything. I think it's wonderful that you're an older.
Yeah.
I think people are so full of life, and we need those. We need more of those spaces. I was talking to a couple of people who came, and they want there's a need for more kind of safer dance environments for them to feel welcomed. Because I obviously, I know a lot of rave communities, and I think when the dance floor is more intergenerational, it just feels more. I think older ravers just know how to party really, really well because they're from that
There you go,
generation.
James. There you go.
So a friend of mine from Ministry of Sound Days organises a rave boat that goes from Southampton and then round the Bay of Biscay and back again for 5 days, and they have Pete Tong and all the old DJs playing on it. Apparently it's hugely good fun, and as you say, Yukari, very politely, they know how to rave, those old guys.
Yeah.
And it's just 5 days of absolute mayhem. So Steve, if you like, we could try and book a couple of tickets and do one of our broadcasts from there. What do you think? You look skeptical. Very good. Well, listen, Tina, Yukari,
why not?
We're right behind you. Lots of support, and I hope you'll come back and let us know how it all goes. And I am personally going to be working on my joy score really hard over the next few months. So looking forward to that metric coming to light.
Well, join the experiment, James. Seriously,
I will do. We will put it on our channels and support you with it. Fantastic.
When politicians talk about the feel-good factor, maybe that's what they mean. They mean the joy score. Maybe that's right. What Keir Starmer's missing. And exactly. We love it. Thanks for talking to us about it. I think you DJ under the name Tina Technotronic. Is that right, Tina? Is that where people can find you on social media?
Tina Technotic, yeah.
Tina Technotic. Yep. And Yukari, where can people find you on socials?
Just Yukari, DJ Yukari.
Yukari, and Yukari, sorry, and it is the longevity rave. Thanks for joining us on Prevention is the New Cure. Off they go, dancing into the night.
I know.
Was that fun, James? Does that take you back?
Listen, it's really powerful. I've been following what Tina's doing for a couple of years. She's definitely onto something. This joy score thing, it wouldn't surprise me if that became more mainstream. I really think she's got a point.
Well, as you mentioned that you co-authored that Lancet paper with her, so you know that the advocacy that she's talking about is grounded in real science. There's a lot of work to do there, though, isn't there? Because I was asking her about feel good versus actually whether there's something going on in the brain.
Yeah, I mean, the drumbeat we're getting from senior clinicians around the world, you get this a lot from the American Surgeon General's office, is that loneliness, a sense of happiness, connection have huge impacts, not just on your mental health, but on your likelihood of dementia, on your cardiovascular. Your physicality is affected by what's going on in your brain, in your activity, in your social engagement. If you lose your sense of hearing, your chances of getting dementia skyrocket immediately. So I think these things are rooted in science, and there is strong correlation and causation for why we should all be connected with each other. So I am pro-medicine, pro-empiricism, but I am also pro-raving.
Movement as medicine, as somebody once said. I suppose I was thinking when we were doing this, it's a bit social prescribing space in a way, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You could imagine it being part of that. The other thing we were just talking to them about
Steve,
while we were waiting for.
I find social. Listen, I'm a big champion of social prescribing. It is. I find it though awkward because this shouldn't have to have a special name. It shouldn't be inserted as a sort of like slightly kooky side benefit that GPs need to be trained on. It's totally mainstream. The idea that your social connection is part of your overall healthiness, it should be absolutely in the middle of mainstream general practice. So yes, it is considered in the UK as something called social prescribing, but really it should not require special treatment.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's just actually medicine, right? And
Yeah.
It goes back to when the GP was at the heart of the community,
Right.
married to the local copper, and that they were therefore prescribing social interaction as part of their work. But
Yep.
it is seen as kooky in this country, and I think some GPs, we just haven't got time for all this.
I know.
But there it is.
The
other thing I was just thinking when we were, yeah. The other thing I was just thinking when we were doing this, we were chatting to them as the episode was uploading, was there's this sort of quite a lot of people at the moment doing this daytime dancing,
Yeah.
So going to a club in their lunch break. And I was asking them, is it that? And Yukari said, well, it's day into night, actually. So maybe that's for the slightly younger ones. But I loved it. Yeah, amused me greatly. Anyway, shall we close the show and talk about something positive? 50 years of prevention is everybody's business.
Yeah, well, this is both elegiac and positive. I just noticed that we're literally 50 years this month from an absolutely stunning piece of Whitehall policy work called Prevention and Health, Everybody's Business. It is a absolutely clear-cut manifesto of the prevention is the new cure cause. Yeah. Word for word, it could have been written today. It spells out in very clear terms what needs to be done in order to turn around our health system. I mean, it is so contemporary. It's sort of a joke. I'm going to put it in our channels as a copy of it. I guess the sad thing is not much progress has been made on it in the last 50 years because all the same challenges are true. Too much is spent on late stage medicine, not enough on trying to get people to lead healthier lives, and not enough challenge and opportunity given to people to try to understand how they can have better, healthier lives. I mean, that was true 50 years ago, and it's true today. I think that the exciting thing is that the science has changed. Some of that science is in medicines like the GLP-1s, and some of it is in behavioral science that we now understand how to encourage and nudge people to do the right thing. And the politics is cranking round. The NHS board yesterday, I don't know if you saw the pictures of it, they met and spoke about neighbourhood health and the first and most important of the three shifts. So this is at the top table, this agenda. I wouldn't say that we're making massive progress on it day by day, but Steve, the prevention cause I think is one for today, and we're going to get there, aren't we, in our lifetime?
I hope so. And spring 76, so I was just a few months old, so 50 years ago. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I suppose as you say, some of the language changes. I mean, they would have known the sugar levy, they wouldn't have known foods high in fat, salt, and sugar replacement. They wouldn't have known the tobacco and vapes bill. Far from it. And as you say, GLP-1s were merely a twinkle. But as were platforms and junk food ads being banned, but of course there weren't junk food in that sense then. So the language has changed, but the principle is there. And I didn't know about that document, but I think that's really interesting. And as you say, we'll put the link to it on our socials. So let's hope we're not having the conversation in 2076.
Indeed.
So let's hope we've migrated to something more enlightened.
That's right.
And on that note, I shall let you go back to the sunshine of Mallorca. Enjoy the rest of your holiday with the family. I'm off out to take Monty for a dog walk because it is beautiful and sunny in Winchester. This is Prevention is the New Cure. You have been listening to the Health and Politics podcast and episode 92 of it. We will be back next week as usual. James, enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you to our listeners.
Yep, thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye.